My name is Shanique and I am with Blavity. How is your heart today? How are you feeling?
Feel great.
Amazing. And so when you reflect on 40 years, what would you say was that aha moment that made you go like, I made it or I've accomplished what I set out to do?
Hmm. Um, I think being able to go solo and do it on my own, made me feel like I made it. Um, Being with NWA and you got Dr. Dre there and Easy E and you kind of got uh a few seasoned vets with DJ Yella. You feel like okay, you know, things are working out. We got the best team. DLC is there. We got like an all-star team here, so it's working. But leaving that group and then going solo and still being able to maintain the level of stardom, so to speak, and take it to, new heights with the with acting in Boys in the Hood and things like that. That's when I really had like, okay, I can do this outside of that production, blanket, so to speak.
Absolutely. And one thing that I like have loved about you over the years, I'm a kid of the early 90s. So my dad used to bump, he had this Chevy Impala and he used to bump like NWA, but also just like your albums. And one thing that was so cool is that you came out of the gate telling truth to power. And now in this 180 move, you're celebrating 4 decades, not only with a Truth to Power tour, but a new album, Man Up, where you're doing nothing else but what you do best, but shedding that light on so many things from AI, which I'm from Virginia, so the only AI like I acknowledge is Allen Iverson. Um, to ownership, to the current, I like to call them like the soft generation that we live in, if you will. Um, but what has been, or what was your intention with making Man Up? Why did you feel like now is the moment where, like, I need to give the people who know me, like, what I do best, but also, like, this new generation, they need to hear what I have to say?
Yeah, it's always been about street knowledge. It's always been about, trying to spit game. If you're rapping, you should be, rapping for something for a reason. I mean, everybody freestyle every now and then just to kind of show off, but for the most part, rap at its best is delivering a message, in a song form, something people can relate to, but in a song form. And that's what I love to do. I love to figure out different concepts that I haven't touched on or and try to create something. You still got to be dope. You still got to be, amazing, and the song still got to bump, it got to bang, it got to catch you, it got to be catchy.
Yeah.
It has to still do all that, but you can deliver a powerful message at the same time. I look at artists like Bob Marley, who's able to make hits, but they also carry a heavy message. So that's something that I pride myself on doing. And, with Man Down, I was kind of talking about things that kind of have us down. And so with Man Up, I wanted to kind of flip the reverse and, give inspiration in some way, shape, or form. But still, be quintessential Ice Cube and you know, do what I do best.
Yeah, I love that. And I like had an opportunity like to listened to the album like quite a few times because it just gives me like that good feeling. Like one of my favorite Ice Cube songs is "You Know How to Do It," and I like I used to really bump that. Like, and you were speaking so much truth. Like, all I want to do is have fun with my loved ones.
Yeah.
Um, but there are so many songs that I like on this new album, especially what you come out with Man Up, because it really to me encapsulates that raw energy that you bring to everything that you do. And it's My Ego. You mentioned that you were Kendrick before Kendrick, which I think was such a great nod. Especially because y'all both are Geminis, and like one thing about a Gemini, y'all gonna speak your truth even when
Yeah.
people don't want to hear it. Has there ever been a moment where someone tried to maybe instill fear in you about speaking your mind? And if so, how did you overcome that? Like, yeah.
Um, all the time, all the time, you're gonna have people who, and they got your best interests at heart. They know with the truth sometimes come a lot of consequences because people don't want the truth to be known if something is being done that's dirty or underhanded. They don't want you to give up the game on how it's being done. And and so, most of the time I think, especially when you're doing music, you got the microphone. These records are gonna live longer than I am.
Mhm.
They're gonna still be around when I'm, you know, passed away. So it's your only opportunity to tell the truth and have it recorded.
Yeah.
Big. So it's really all about that. It's all about having a record of it, so to speak. These records, some people go listen to the records and get a lot of history off the records.
Mhm.
So, I always want to tell the truth because it's being recorded. Like I don't want to fake the funk and I'm being recorded. Like I gotta come real.
Yeah, yeah, that's so real. And it's so cool. Like, I always think of music as like a time capsule because, like, there are certain songs, like, it's so bad, but like, No Vaseline. I remember when I first heard that song, and I was a kid. Like, my daddy shouldn't have been playing that for me, but it turned out okay. And so
Happens to all of us.
yeah, yeah. And on Friday, you released the premix to Before Hip Hop with LL Cool J and Chuck D. And shout out to Chuck D. He had an art exhibit in St. Louis that I got to see, and it was really, really dope. And it was cool seeing like hip hop, like not through like his voice, but through his like artistry. Um, but we've lived in a world, well, at least for the past 53 years, where so much has been blamed on hip hop when it comes to like the ills of the world. And I love that track because it talks like all of this stuff. Like people were smoking weed, people were dying, like all of this was going on pre-hip hop. In what ways did you or do you wish to teach accountability with that track?
um, just the true history of hip hop is black form of music done primarily black youth, and just because of that, it gets blamed on all the problems that go on with the youth. And, the video gaming industry gets a pass,
Hmm.
so you got somebody who, like a Lil Wayne who can probably tell you, he can rap about being a blood and tell you about it. But it's some video games you can actually go on there and be a blood the whole night and the next day
Yeah.
and the day after that, in the digital world you can be a criminal, you can be a lowlife, you can be a jacker, you can be, all these things are simulated, but the video industry, gets a pass for that. The movie industry gets a pass. Television, all the violence you see on movies and television and the horror movies and you cutting up people and killing and the Fortnites and the Call of Duties and
GTA,
all
like,
this shit gets a pass.
yeah.
But hip hop takes the hit for
Mhm.
all the problems. The gun manufacturers get a pass. The people that make the bullets get a pass. You know what I'm saying? So it's just to point out, hey, all this shit was going on. Hip hop is the mirror. Hip hop is the you got mud and you make a mud pie. It's like it's the art that comes off of this carnage. Um, and it's being made into a creative form. And so, you might not like that rap talks about the good, the bad, the ugly, and the nasty. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So people don't like to talk about the ugly and the nasty. So,
Yeah.
but rap talks about it. It shows you what's going on for real, for real. And people can't deal with it, so they want to blame it for the problem when we know that's not true.
Absolutely. And speaking of mirror, I just have to say freedom to me holds up a mirror to like the world right now. And I love that play on words like for the name of the song. It was like I really like that song. But I
Oh,
want to shift gears here before I let you go. And the first is I want to talk about the big three. So in starting out, did you ever imagine that you would like have a league and like most people don't know like you're in the NBA Hall of Fame for creating and having this impact on the sport like that? What does that mean to have that as a part of your legacy too?
oh man, this is like a dream come true kind of. Um, and yeah, I could imagine. I wouldn't have done it if I couldn't imagine it being, part of the sports landscape that people look forward to the big three like they look forward to the NBA or they look forward to NFL and so I definitely was dreaming big, thinking big, and I want our league to last 100 years like the NBA would. They probably up to 85, but I want us to last that long too. So was definitely dreaming of that, and it's been the being in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame was something that I never dreamed of. Like that was like a surprise birthday party. You're not thinking about it, and bam, it's great. So that lets you know that you never know who's watching. Just keep doing what you're doing because you never know who's watching. And they said that, with what we did with the big three, you know, with athletes' mental health and embracing that, embracing you know, women playing, coaching men, and winning championships, and doing those groundbreaking things. They said that I've made a great impact on the game, and so having guys where they can look forward to another league outside of the NBA where they can still shine as pro basketball players here in America, not having to go overseas. All these things are, just gifts, and I'm, extremely grateful and don't take it for granted at all. I'm proud.
Absolutely. I'm proud of you too. I think that's so cool.
Thank
And I just love how, you just let it speak for itself. Because there's always going to be someone with something to say. But it's like, what y'all got to say now that is in the Hall of Fame and we've made this impact? So I think that's super dope. I just have two more questions for you. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this because we have finally, or I can only speak for myself, but we finally got what we've all been waiting for in terms of that green light to proceed with last Friday. And so I understand that you previously had a script where Day Day and Craig had that dispensary. They broke out in a flash mob and they went to jail. And they weren't trying to have that, but then all of these jail entities, if you will, came popping up. You've always been ahead of the curve. But when you think about and when you're writing that perfect script, if you will, what are some of the ways that you're aiming to speak to like what's going on in the current climate we live in? I know we live in such this touchy world. I like to call it like, and you mentioned it in the album, like the herd mentality and just how people like it's so many movies from back in the day that like today people would be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm offended." Like, how do you deal with that with making like this sequel that, is it goes to like a timeless franchise? Like, how do you take that in?
I think you got to make something that's, of course, up to date. Um, so we have to bring the story up to date. And, I think you be real and you be funny and you take the license to laugh at yourself.
Mm,
And some people were offended by those movies. I think if you're not pushing the edge a little bit, you're not being as real as you need to be. So we're not gonna let society's norms hold us back from making a funny movie that makes sense for today. So
yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm so excited. And then last but certainly not least, there are two moments that I believe in your life are the reason that we get to witness the legacy that is Ice Cube. One is I was watching an interview and you mentioned a fifth grade teacher who was impressed with your summer vacation story that she showed the principal, and then ultimately you got to give a speech in sixth grade showing that you could speak or perform in front of others. So to me, that gave us Ice Cube, the rapper. And then
Yeah.
secondly, when rest in peace to John Singleton, he not only tapped you to act in Boys in the Hood, but he encouraged you to write your own script that kicked off this film legacy through Cube Vision, with obviously giving us franchises like Friday. I don't know if you could see, but that's like Craig and
Yeah, I
Friday.
see it back there.
Yeah. Barbershop. And then my childhood favorite, Are We There Yet? That's one of my favorite films. Um, but along with something I had no business watching as a kid, Players Club, I love that movie too. If you had to sit down with yourself in both of those moments, what would you say to a fifth grade O'Shea Jackson? And what would you say to 22-year-old Ice Cube now that you're on the Truth to Power tour? You're in the TCL, like you've done all of these great things.
Um, to the fifth grade, I would say to myself that um being creative and cooperative has opened up this situation for you.
Mm,
You see what I mean? So, she first noticed me, and you talk about my teacher, Miss Prentice, she first noticed me because I could draw. But it was a guy named Ilya Glass who was better than me. So I was trying to get better at that. And then and then when it was time to write the speech, well, not the speech, but the just a description of my what I did in the summer, I was able to take my thoughts and turn them into sentences and words, and she was impressed by that. So I just would say, stay creative and stay cooperative when it comes to, um, know where your bread is buttered. Know
mm,
what's good for you. Know when it's good for you, ride that wave.
Yeah.
I mean, just kind of understand where you are and who's with you and who's against you. So, and for the second question was about John Singleton. Second part of the question,
Mm-hmm.
repeat
Yeah.
it.
Like your 22-year-old self, like what would you say? Because were you 22 when you were in Boys in the Hood?
I was 20.
Oh, 20. Okay.
Yeah, but you know what I would say to myself is take this shit serious.
Mhm.
Don't look at it like um and I mean it's what I did, but so I was tell myself exactly what I did was take this shit serious. Don't look at it just as a one-time thing if you can make it into a career. Like I looked at it as after Boys in the Hood, I could either be a great actor or I could be a movie star. And I went for the movie star
Yeah.
lane.
Yeah. I love that. Well, Ice Cube, thank you so much for sharing your artistry with us. I remember I like well, the first time I went to LA, I was like, I feel like I'm living in an Ice Cube song. Like from my childhood, like in visiting LA for the first time I think I was like 19, about to be 20. And just thank you for beautifully using your words to like paint pictures through your music. But then visually, like there's so many characters I know through all of your films that I see myself, I see my family members. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for, you know, being a fan and understanding the journey. You know, you definitely got, you know, a grip on what it took, what I was doing, you know, my stages in my career. So thanks for a nice interview.
Of course. Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, take it easy.
All right.
Thank you.